Hello, everyone, as you come pouring in. Welcome, welcome. It is Nick Paro, Frederic Poag, and our special guest, Melissa Corrigan, on today's Vet Talk. We wanted to bring Melissa on because she's a veteran. She's a Navy vet, and she's not a submariner, which is okay. They don't let women on submarines. I don't know if they still have that rule.
I think
But
that
she's
they've
also
started
an incredible
allowing
advocate.
female officers, but not
Mm.
enlisted.
But Melissa is an incredible advocate for veterans, for just general human rights. And we wanted to have her on and talk because I got to talk to her last week. And we liked her so much, we asked her back for more. So,
Yeah.
Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself to those in the audience? I got to get our chat and everything pulled up on this side so I can see what's going on.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
welcome,
I'm
Melissa.
Melissa Corrigan, and I run two publications on Substack. One is Countertory Media. That's my primary publication. Our tagline is "We exist to audit the narrative." We provide a platform for underserved voices to audit existing societal narratives, and that does include veterans in great deal. I have a publication on Medium called Served that is specifically just for the stories of veterans. And I also run Does She Shut Up, which is sort of a feminist rant Substack. And I've been having a lot of fun with that lately. If you've seen my last four stories, it's a quadrilogy of fuck stories where we fuck celebrities and fuck inaction and fuck trolls. So, yeah, so you can check me out at either of those for the two sides of my personality.
See, Frederic, this is why we brought Melissa on, because this goes hand in hand with the conversation we were having yesterday.
Yes.
You, me, and Lawrence were talking about a domain name you own and a cool show idea for the new Banner and Backbone network that's coming out this weekend, which is starting with a live stream 24-hour event. And I'm talking about it with Melissa because she is
Yes.
someone I've talked to about it. And I want to get her thoughts out in the open around the idea of Banner and Backbone. But one of our ideas is, Fred, correct me if I'm wrong on the domain name. It was throughbillionaires.com.
I own the domain name of screwbillionaires.com. Yes.
So
I love that for you.
We're gonna start a show that is exclusively about Through Billionaires. It's gonna just be us and friends bullshitting and talking about the billionaires and how they fucking suck, and how Jeff Bezos went on a $50 million wedding while all of our rights and healthcare were being taken away, or the VA was being gutted. And we're just going to talk how billionaires suck and they're stealing our money.
That's
Like-
fantastic.
What do you think about that?
I'm in.
Like the Koch brothers did before them and basically gutted, our social safety net,
But wait, I don't know if I should participate because one day I may be a billionaire.
Oh, one day. No, I'm gonna break your heart today, Melissa. And Fred Wellman actually broke our hearts yesterday when he said it too.
Right.
He told us there's no class movement. You're never gonna be a billionaire. You just can't do it. I'm sorry. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many jobs you pick up, no matter how much of that American spirit you got or that eagle jizz you got all over you from our last show, you're never gonna be a billionaire.
No matter how many boots you lick, there's just no boot licking business that can build you to being a billionaire. Doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And that's not the topic of our show. The topic of our show is Melissa.
Woo.
But Melissa, in that note, won't be a billionaire, unfortunately, because none of us can be. Literally none of us can be. I think that's actually a good point that we're talking about, is none of us can be. And one of the things that's happening right now is they're transferring all of our wealth and our social safety nets and our systems away from us, specifically as veterans. And this is veteran-focused talk, is the VA. And one of those social safety nets and promises that America made to us for going to war and doing our civic and patriotic duty to protect the American home front and guard freedom, we were told we would get health care for the rest of our lives. And that was
Yep.
the bargain we made. And they're taking it away from us, and they're taking it away from folks who are still serving too. Women, trans service members,
Yeah.
and they're taking away their retirements and they're as though they never served. And I really want to get your thoughts on that because this really pisses me off a lot because an attack on one is an attack on all.
It
But
is. It is. And it's just downright insulting for anyone who stepped up to serve that anyone would ever consider cutting their benefits at all. It doesn't matter who they are. But I think it's interesting because even as an active duty woman, there were differences in healthcare when I was active duty. Like, so I was in the Navy, so we were on ships. So the ship I was on an aircraft carrier, the Eisenhower, and I love it. And people think I'm being sarcastic, but that was my second home. I love, love, love it. I miss it every day. Having a coffee and cigarette on the smoke deck out at sea is just nothing else like it. But we, the women, were tested for STDs every year, and the guys weren't. Where would we get it?
yeah,
Well,
apparently
from the
only each
200
other.
women on a
Only
boat
each
with
other.
5,000 men.
I'm
And we
guessing
got
from
it.
I'm guessing from the chow hall, from a improperly cleaned seat.
Apparently, since only women are getting checked, it must be because all women are lesbians, right? That's what they're implying.
We're just
Is that
passing
only
around
the
the
women are
torture.
having sex, but
Right.
with each other. That's why there's so many stiff socks on boats.
Right. And when we got to boot camp, we had to get on birth control. There were some Catholic women that were unaware of this when they signed up, and there was definitely some incidents and loud discussions because it wasn't an option. It was if you are going to be in boot camp here, you can choose the shot, the implant, or the pill, but you will be on something. And it's crazy because they didn't give any of the guys vasectomies, and they're reversible. So I just think that was crazy. So yeah, the discrepancy in healthcare, even while active duty, was pretty crazy. And I had my first child while active duty because the Navy gave me 5 years expired birth control. And they disseminated that to a bunch of women, and 5 of us on the ship got pregnant that month, none of which were wanting that at that time. And I hope my son's not watching. He knows all of this, but you were a happy accident, baby. But yeah, we were all on this birth control, and it was given to us by our command. And so we all showed up at medical essentially within the same week, like, hello, what the fuck? And so we were told that the Navy would be super happy to give us abortions. Like, so then
If you want them.
yeah. So then once again, it was like, oh, okay, you're making me make a decision. Okay, that's your fault. Cool. And obviously I did not do that. So then when I had to inform my immediate superior at the time, I was the crypto tech for the Eisenhower. And so I maintained and controlled and took and destroyed all crypto material for the ship. And so I had to go tell my immediate superior, who was a lieutenant, who was an asshole to begin with. And he just chewed me out one end of he didn't let me finish the whole, this is how I got in this predicament. And so he just chewed my ass up one end and down the other about how women were pieces of shit. This is why we shouldn't have women in the military, all this. Luckily, my warrant officer was walking by in the P-way, who was a very tenured Black female, and she definitely interjected in that moment and reminded him that his wife had 5 kids on the military dole, so maybe he could pipe down. So it's yeah, the medical care, even while active duty, was so sketch and so unequal with what men get that it took me a couple years after I got out to even sign up for VA healthcare because I was like, well, if it's like it was when I was in, I'm good. I could do without. Yeah.
Well,
I just gotta
it's really
say,
sad. Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
that's the most military thing I've heard, where they issue you 5-year expired birth control. Like, that is the most military thing that is ever military. It's everything we get is expired. It's like, hey, when did this shelf stable bread expire? 5 years ago. It's like, you gonna eat it?
World War II.
Why not? Like, what else am I gonna do?
Yes, exactly.
But it is so Melissa, it's really sad to hear your story, because it unfortunately sounds like my wife's at times. Like, the units discriminated against her because she was a woman, because she could get pregnant, and because we recently had a kid. Like, my stepdaughter, like, she had a baby, but I was in the picture and I could take care of her, but it was only ever me they wanted to send places, even when we were married, or even when it was very, very clear that we were in a committed relationship. It was always me they sent places, never my wife. It was always, oh, she can't go because baby's at home. Well, but what about dad, who could stay home while baby's at home? And let mom go do the thing that she signed up for and she's really good at, and you guys want to keep her in the service, but you're not doing the things to keep women in the service for. Now they're definitely not doing that. Which really, I think, is part of the heart of a lot of the issue right now. Is we axed, every competent leader in the military, and those just happened to be women and people of color, and only they got axed, though.
Yeah, but this was in the works all the way back to Trump's first term, and I wish I had brought out my notes so I could name names. I know General Flynn was involved.
Yep, of course.
But when
of
the
course
Marines,
he is that fuckhead.
When the Marines decided to disband the internal police, the MPs, which they've done completely. But when they initiated that, I said, that is the only safeguard. That's the only guardrails for women in the military to report sexual assault. And so once the Marines have removed that internal safeguard, I no longer recommend any young woman go in the Marines. Absolutely not. Do not, because there is no enforcement arm if you are raped or sexually assaulted by one of your fellow Marines. There's no one to report it to now, unless you want to go outside the service and get involved in a really large, that most women don't. They just don't.
No.
So,
and it's always about punishing women.
Yes. And so now that they've done more and more and more, they've fired so many military women. I set up a Google News alert for every day with the words "relieved of her duties," just so I can stay on top of all of the women who are being removed. In the same week, the head of the the Joint Forces Intelligence Committee here in Norfolk and in San Diego, both were led by women, highly competent, highly achieved women, both fired in the same week. Under this administration.
I need to get you and Bobby Jones, retired Commander Bobby Jones, on a show together, because the two of you would go off in the best way about this issue. I'm going to see if I can, if you want, I'm going to see if I can hook that up, because I think you two need to talk about this out loud, because he is just as mad on this issue, because he worked under the admiral who was fired, I believe, and he worked with these women, and he knows just how competent and how successful and how accomplished they are. And like Walter Ryan said the other day in a note, is you cannot have the best of the best anywhere if you exclude half your population. Just like off the get-go, you lose the ability to have the best of the best, because competition breeds competition.
Right.
And
the women who achieved those positions, what they had to go through in order to get there. Is just really unfathomable, especially to men. And I think back to the first captain, Captain Smith, on the Eisenhower he was so bonkers. He would ride a bicycle up the gangplank. He would call us. I was at IT, so he would call us down in the IT shack for someone with his computer, and then he would sit on his laptop until we got there, drinking red wine. Like, the guy's a nut. He was a fucking nut. And it's like, so they will elevate men like that to such positions of power that he is in control of $1 billion aircraft carrier and 5,000 people on board. And he's a lush that doesn't know how to turn on his computer. I mean, It's really crazy, but God forbid they put a woman in that position. What she has to go through to even get to that position is so insane. And then when this administration came in and just started axing this way, oh my God, infuriating.
I think a part of this is, besides the patriarchy and besides all this kind of, crap that's been going on since time immemorial with with any civilization and the sexism, is there's this notion that by these assholes who've never done it, or the people like Pete Hegseth who will like, I can do 20 push-ups, is that everybody's Rambo and everybody is this sort of like what you see in the Hollywood movies. And that's not what most of the service is, period.
No.
It's tech stuff. It's counterintelligence. It's people of intelligence that know how to operate something.
Right.
I think like the saying used to be for the infantrymen, there's like 11 service members that are back in support for the mission that they have to do.
Right.
And so when you are discounting women and you are not making space for them, to Walter Ryan's point too, you are not going to get the best of the best. You are not going to get people that's competent. You are not going to get, and you're not going to get other people. You're eventually going to get the worst of the worst, right? You're going to get the dregs of people that either have no choice, and this is their only option to get any, and so the service will suffer,
Mm-hmm.
and then the people that do get in, you're going to drum them out. You're either going to drum them out or you're going to, because again, they're not the women that have gotten to these positions, to your point, these are highly capable women because they've had to fight through all that crap to get there. And every one of us has stories about these crazy flag officers or these generals. Like we had one at Jacksonville that used to run the gate to see it, and then would reprimand the gate guards for not shooting at him. And he would drive around the base. And so, like in the barracks, you have like the lights that come on at a certain time, right?
Yeah.
In the morning, he wanted for quote unquote, good order and discipline. He wanted the lights to start at the barracks at the top floor and then come on 10 seconds after each one, like this. And if that didn't happen, like we would all get pulled out and put in formation so he could ream the officers in the various battalions because the lights didn't come on and fall into sequence, right? And this is before like Wi-Fi and all this other shit. It's like, it's basically, the old school, like we're talking the old school thermostats where you kind of like have to do this. That's in that era, right? And so, we're standing outside for 6 hours like, fuck's this about? I don't know. We just had to have battalion formation. So we're all just fucking having a formation. We're standing outside. It's like, all right, you guys can go to your class. It's like, and then you find out later why you're there. Those guys are getting promoted.
Yep.
But the competent women are getting pushed out.
And on a more serious note, the behavior, once they are elevated to these positions, I'm not sure what the equivalent in the other branches would be, but in the Navy, they say, you make chief and it takes an act of Congress to get you out of those khakis, right? You make chief and you're good. And so what that does is enable a lot of misbehavior on the part of chiefs. And a lot of it is stuff like DUIs. If a chief gets a DUI, he's probably going to get a slap on the wrist, where an enlisted guy is going to go ahead and, get captain's mast or something. But to a more serious end, within our departments, we had a chief who essayed women on board the ship to the point where he was reported repeatedly to the EO. Nothing happened. And then he drove to a sailor's apartment and raped her in her apartment. And all that was done was he was transferred command. And the command he was transferred to happened to be my next command. So I went to that command, and it was also the command that his wife served at. And when his wife started coming in with black eyes, and there's still this concept that, well, let's just move him to a different, let's just move him again and keep passing the buck and keep passing the buck. And as a woman, and you're sitting there watching this, just watching none of these other men in uniform protect you or protect any woman that this guy has his hands on, including his own wife. That's real stark. I developed a nickname when I was in the military. I was called the Ice Queen because I was a bitch. Because I learned really fucking fast that if you displayed any type of friendliness with men in uniform, you were opened up to like so much just really gross sexual harassment. So I just became a super bitch to everybody.
A common trope, unfortunately, in the military, at least in the army when I was in, was that that pretty much most or any of the females who were sergeant first class or above somehow slept their way to the top. That was the common trope that people like to use, is that women they're only in power because they sleep their way to the top. Well, the military doesn't actually work that way, even as much as the men in it want to claim that. Like, if you're at least on the enlisted side, when you get promotions, you have to be recommended by your command. You have to make points, which means you have to go to schools. You have to go to certain trainings. You have to meet PT scores. You have to do all sorts of things to prove yourself that you're ready to do it. And then the system decides, did you make points or not? And then you're promoted.
Right. And in the Navy, we had to take a test. Who came in and took my test for me? Like,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then command still has the option to not promote you.
Right.
Yes.
It's only like, it's kind of like, you don't like, oh, you made this many points, you're eligible for promotion, because there's this thing called discretion, because they get it to where it's like, okay, this unit can promote so many people to E6, or they can promote so many people to E7. Here's a list of people that with points that qualify for that position. Okay, like I might be number 4, right? Melissa might be number 2 on that list. And command looks at me and goes, yeah, but Frederic served over here, and he's got, he's gung-ho Marine, like he's like, yeah, we're gonna promote him to E7. Melissa, she's still got some seasoning to do. She could, we'll think about it the next go around.
Yeah, we've heard she's
that's
really
how it
rude
works,
or mean
right?
to people, so we won't promote her this time.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, we have 7, so we're going to go with the top, or we have 2, so we're going to go with the top 2. Melissa's second, somebody else is first. I'm number 4. I don't get it. It's like, no, we're going to promote 2, so we're going to promote number 4 and number 6 in the top 10. Oh, look at that. Both of those were white males.
Yep.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, isn't that how
and
it
that's
works?
how it works.
Yep. And as far as the attitude thing that you mentioned, I got really lucky that my direct chain of command, I had a chief who was essentially a drunk and sat in his office all day and drank out of a Listerine bottle. And then our warrant officer, who was the guy we actually reported to. But both of them were supportive. And so I was in charge of the tech help desk on the ship. And so I would send out texts for the trouble calls. And if we got really overloaded, I would go out for those calls. And obviously, going into a space with a guy where I'm alone with a guy, a lot of times they're going to try something or say something or make inappropriate comments. And I would turn around and leave. Fix your own fucking shit. I don't care. You're the one that needs the internet. You're the one that needs a printer, not me. So I would go back to the shop. And by the time I got back to the shop, usually they've called down there and they're screaming and everything. And my warrant would say, what'd you say to her? What'd you say? Okay, I've got your ticket. We'll get to it when we fucking get to it. And when I send my people down there, you'll talk to them right. It's as simple as that. So I was super lucky that my direct chain of command was, for the most part, supportive, of my bitchiness.
And and what I've found is like the folks that are in command that actually do it right are those that aren't there, quote, protecting the women who are serving. They're promoting the women who are serving and actively treating them in the same manner that they treat their other service members.
Yes.
And because that chief would have done the same thing had it been a male service member that he
Yes.
had under him.
Yeah.
He was treating Melissa as an equal to her other service members, because that's what she was. She was an equal to them, and she should have been treated that way. And if we believe in a meritocracy system, because that's what the tech bros and all of them want us to be,
Yeah.
well, meritocracy requires everybody to participate. And I hate to break it to you, but more women are going to rise to the top of that, because women have to fight through so much shit that we don't. I didn't have to fight through shit as a service member. When I was enlisted, I got in as an E4. So I was a specialist when I came in. They were not happy about that at basic, because they make you rip your rank off, and then you're all private fuzzy there. But by the end, they give you your rank back, and they then start calling you by it. Is like the whole like system around you is based on helping each other and building the team and building the system. And like without the structure of trust, like that whole foundation where Melissa was trusted by her command because she did her job well. Well,
Yep.
women tend to rise to the top because they've had the challenge. And that's also why minorities and people of color, a lot of folks rise to the top because they had to actually face the challenge of
Right.
meeting merits or exceeding merits to just get to the bottom of the list.
You have to be the best. You have to be the
Yeah.
best, and you can never have an off day.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing that after I got out was the first thing I noticed in my life was like, okay, it's okay to have an off day now. But all those years, couldn't have an off day. You couldn't have an off day, and you couldn't like unmask, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a mask, because like my wife would come home and she was a different person sometimes when she got
Yeah.
home, because she could be relaxed, and she didn't have to feel like she needed to be like perfect in line. Like women, when you do, like, let's just take hair regulation as like the smallest example of what it's like on a difference between male and females. I got out as an E5 as a sergeant. By the time I got out, my hair was way out of reg. Like the back of my hairline was perfect in the back, and I had it shaped, and I had a low fade. So it wasn't on my ears, it didn't touch. But the top of my hair, I had that long, it would come down to the back, but it was glued down with gel. So it looked like I was in regs all the time, or I just wore my PC all the time, which is your patrol cap for those who don't know. If you're outside without a hat on, you're not outside. You better not be outside. And
So what
but
you're
if
saying
my
is you were butt crack nasty. That's what you're saying.
yeah, but I look good. Like I look good because I made sure my hair was in. Like I made sure I was always well shaven. But my wife would have to spend so much time getting her hair slicked back, pulled into a really tight bun, where if a
Mhm.
flyaway happened, like they get pissed if you have
Yeah.
flyaways. And God forbid you have a short haircut and it's like growing out and it just touches your shoulders or your collar, because, well, you're fucked. You got to either put it up or cut it.
Yep.
But men don't have that problem. Men don't have that issue, and it's stupid. Like I get why like hair and quality of like caring for yourself are important, but it's the difference between, oh, he's kind of out of regs but we'll let him go, to she's
Right.
well in regs but we're gonna nag the fuck out of her.
But
Yeah.
I think it comes like to the point you were making before, Melissa, like where and this is the frustrating thing about this crap. And this is in society and this is in the military. All it takes is men to stand up and just demand that women be treated like equally, like a colleague.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, And again, like talking about that chief who essayed women, did all this horrible stuff. All it would have taken was for some colonel to go, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's not going to kill his career. It's not going to hurt. It's like chances are by that point, somebody like that, he's burned through all his people. But it would be a headache, but that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
That's your job as that level of leadership is to just go, all right, this is enough. Get him out. I want him gone. It's like he's been passed around. He's done all this crap. Get him out. And it's the same thing with your warrant officer or whoever. It's like all he had to say was, "What'd you say to her?" And that stops them cold because they know they did wrong.
And the crazy thing was, we saw the same ship give justice. And I'm not saying this justice was not warranted. It absolutely was. But when I first got to the ship, we were in the shipyard and it was gutted. It was totally gutted. And we rebuilt the ship from the inside out. And as an IT, a team of 12 of us installed an entire network on that ship with 16 edge switches and over 10,000 feet of cat cable. We installed that. And so we were put up for NAMS because we did all of that in 6.5 months.
Wow.
And it was round the clock. It was insane. And so we all got put up for NAMS except the one Puerto Rican guy on the team. And he was very much, sorry, phone call. He was very much a part of the team, an active part of the team, just like the rest of us, and didn't get the NAM. So he went straight to the EO, reported it. That chief was disciplined. He had to issue a public apology in front of the division, and then he had to go crank on the mess decks for 2 months. We saw justice in real time in that case. So for the other situation to develop, where a chief did so much even more heinous shit, and because it was involving women, it was just, yeah. So
how do you so we were reading yesterday, Lisa Joy and I were reading a little bit from a sermon from Pete Hegseth's church, which if you don't know anything about Pete Hegseth, he's a white Christian nationalist and his church is nuts. So we were reading part of one of his sermons because we do a dominionism talk every Tuesday and Thursday. And it was all about, it's guised as marriage counseling as a sermon, but it's really just blatant patriarchy and misogyny, and it's gross. And it was about keeping women at home, and it's the Sarah and Jezebel thing. It's that whole thing. So I want to ask you, because you have experienced the effects of people like this, just in general, is how do you think this is going to impact the women who are currently serving? And do you think we're going to have a retention problem soon?
100%. 100%. I think it's going to be extremely detrimental. When you have a rapist in charge, you have a rapist culture. Point blank, period. And like I said, they already started with the Marine Corps and removing those guardrails of the internal MPs, which is where women would report sexual assault. And they are going through the ranks, and they're going to be doing the same thing, dismantling the internal guardrails that keep service members safe from one another. It's not just SA, and it also, SA in the ranks doesn't also just happen to women. So you're removing guardrails, but my best friend since we were 5 years old, her daughter is 17. She has been in ROTC the whole time she's been in high school. I have encouraged her to look into a career in the military. She doesn't really know what she wants to do in any other way. That is something that interests her. And so I have encouraged that up until this election, and especially Pete Hegseth being put in this position. And now I'm like, hey, could you go to community college? I'll help pay for it. Because I really don't want you going in the military right now. Her mom's kept her a little bit sheltered. And for a girl like that at 18 to go in the military, she is fresh meat. In this culture, I'm not saying all the guys that are going in the military right now or that are in the military are rapists and horrible people, but there are those guys, and there's going to be much less protections from those guys. So I would caution any young woman, and I told her, if you still want to do it, you get your ass in self-defense class first and you learn how to fight.
Even that, I mean, so like when I was at training at School of Infantry for the Marine Corps, we had this one guy. So I'm in my early 20s. And, you know, I'm like 19, 20 years old. And he was some 32-year-old former corrections officer, washout steroid abuser, right? And he was about my height. I'm 6'5". He's probably about like 6'1". Sadist, you know. And for a while, they gave him squad leader, right? Because he's big and he's loud and he's this and he's that. So it's like, here you go. And he had a really bad habit of picking on, you know, you could just tell he was a sadist. He'd pick on the smaller Marines, or he'd like, to get your attention, he'd grab you by the throat, right? And so we knew we can't go to the sergeants on this. We can't go to our NCOs. So we got about 15 of us and we gave him a good old fashioned blanket party, beat the ever shit out of him. And that's the kind of stuff you don't want to happen, right? Now, again, that's a group of all men, infantry. We only had one of them, right? We had one freaking, you know, sadist. Beat the shit out of him so bad he went to sick call, and our sergeants got the hint, and they put him in another, you know. But they just passed the problem on, and we were like, well, we dealt with it. It's their problem now, right? Because we saved ourselves. For women, when you are outnumbered by a shit ton, you don't have that option a lot of times. Like you said, you're a target. You're fresh meat.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, it's for me, it's, you know, like even in the Air Force, because I know women who went in the Air Force. I would seriously pause if you're thinking about serving serving in the military at this time.
Yeah, find another way to
I would
serve.
give it serious pause, because you can come out of there all messed up.
Yep.
And with what they're doing in the Army, per the Secretary of the Army from Hegseth, they don't care, because they'll just label you a problem, right?
Right.
Because if you get SA'd or you get assaulted or you get raped, whatever, and then you're having all these PTSD issues and or you turn, like to Melissa said, you become an ice queen, try to protect yourself, oh, you're a problem.
Yep.
We're gonna push you out, you know, because you're a problem. It's your issue, you know, because the military is perfect. That's what they tell you.
Mm-hmm.
The system and the structure is perfect. You're the problem because you don't want to adhere to the standard, you know? And and the standard becomes, hey, Melissa, why don't you let me, you know, come on by your apartment? You know, oh, you're going to tell me no? Well, let me go ahead and call your command and, you know, blah, 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 you know?
Yep.
And that's real. It's absolutely 100.
I think that, like, I had a little bit of advantage when I was on the ship, because in the position I was in, I could see everybody's internet browsing. So if a guy started coming on to me and he started getting really a lot, I'd be like, hey man, Asian porn, that's your fucking thing. You want me to go tell? Like, get the fuck off me. Leave me alone.
Right.
You know,
somebody
I know your secrets, and the really crazy ones, because all on nights where we were bored, we would just do a JPEG search of the servers. It's an internal system. Any picture you send over your email is stored locally. You fuck nuts. Like, oh my God. So when you are sending pictures of yourself in the shower to another man on the ship,
we know,
and you want to come harass me, listen, buddy.
Dial it back, Melissa. Dial it back a little bit. No,
okay.
but you're right. I mean, here's the thing I always tell folks, right? Is if you go down to a civilian job and you get a shitty boss, you get this, you get that, you always have the option to quit. You go in the military, you don't have that option.
Nope.
It's the brig.
Yep.
You can't just say, my boss is harassing me. F you, I quit. You don't
They
have
own
that
you
freedom.
for your contract.
And that's part of what drove me to do all the work I did after I left the military with demanding the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because we had a sailor that she was excellent, electronic tech, top of the department, highly decorated, excellent at her job, best one on the boat. And then we got a chief that picked up on the fact that she would wear the male daily uniform. She would still wear the female dress uniforms because they're so different. But our utilities and our coveralls, the only difference is the way the shirt buttons, you know? So this person, I'm not sure what pronouns they wanted to go by, but it was very clear they were walking that genderqueer line, and they would wear male uniforms, had their head shaved, all that stuff. Nobody gave a fuck because they were such an asset to our department that it just didn't occur to anybody to like even question that. She wasn't overtly sexual with anyone. It was just ridiculous. So we get this chief from Alabama, the same guy that denied the Puerto Rican the NAM, and he just fixates on her and decides to just make her life hell, and just spent every day harassing her, and to the point where she couldn't go to the EO at the time. It was don't ask, don't tell. So she ended up packing up after 12 years in the military, driving home to Maryland and never coming back. And she threw away her career because she was being so badly harassed by this one individual, and this archaic military rule that empowered him to behave that way.
Yep.
And so it felt like that sometimes as a woman, if you didn't have a great EO, that's a equal opportunity officer. If you didn't have a great EO and you didn't have a great chain of command, there were times where it just felt like maybe I should just not come in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be an increasing problem, like you
Yes.
said, is because all the internal guardrails are going away, plus the reporting structure itself is going to be meaningless if there's no one there to enforce it. So
Yeah.
there's SHARP, which is the sexual harassment and assault prevention program in the Army. I think it's very similar in the Navy and Marine Corps and the Air Force. But like, I have a niece who I have been talking about going into service because she wants to. She wants to serve. But now I'm going to discourage her. I'm not going to discourage her forever. I'm going to discourage her to go until after college. I'm going to tell her I'm going to
That's
hope
what
she
I'm
goes to
encouraging
college.
women to do, because once they have that degree, they can also go in as an officer, which is also going to afford them an extra layer of protection.
Yes, because officers do have a layer of protection that enlisted soldiers don't. One, there is a system. It is a very old system in the military, but there's a very structured system of respect amongst officers with each other for a lot of things. Sometimes that gets played out as in like the spouses become really part of it and they grab onto their spouse's rank and they think that they are that rank too.
Yeah.
But it also comes out there's a line that a lot of officers won't cross with each other, but they might cross it with enlisted. And that's part of the issue too, is there's that power structure that there's a lot of male officers that will take advantage of their either male or female enlisted soldiers because no one is stepping up to say no. And I think one of the big lessons in all of this, you look like me or Fred without a beard, say no. Like tell them, because as part of the military, and this is one thing too that like until they stop having that structure completely, it is your duty to report it. Like if you don't report it, you're in the wrong, and you should, with that person's permission, report it. That something happened and make sure it's reported because it needs to be nowadays. Like
Oh my gosh.
if
Men standing up So there was another incident when I first got to the ship. So I was like fresh out of A school. I've been there a couple months. And remember, I said the ship was just gutted. It was gutted.
Mm-hmm.
So they had pulled a barge up alongside that had our bathrooms. It had barracks. It had everything there. So to use the bathroom, we had to leave where we were on the ship, walk all the way down off the ship and over to the barge. So I'm working in one of our radio spaces. We're installing equipment, and it's just me and two guys. One is an E5, and one was the same rank I was, fresh out of school as well. And this E5 had been just sitting in a chair talking while I was working about how women shouldn't be in the military. He was a redhead from Alabama. I'll never forget this guy. And he just droning on and on about how I was a waste of space. And I don't know why Mother Nature felt the need at this time. It was early, but I felt that I was going to start my period I needed to go. So I stood up and I said, "Hey, I got to go to the head." And he was like, "No." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. I need to go to the head right now. I'm just letting you know. Unless you want a mess to clean up, I need to go right now." And this guy, not until I got into an abusive marriage. It was alarming to see how quickly and how explosively he became enraged.
Yeah.
Enraged.
Yeah.
And told me to get back on the floor and keep doing my job. He didn't give a shit if I bled anywhere. I could clean that up too. I was so stunned, and he's in my face and he's like spitting, angry and screaming in my face. And for people that aren't in the military, you need to understand that's not super common outside of boot camp.
No,
That's
it's
not
not.
something that just
Nope.
happens. That's a drill sergeant thing. That's a drill commander thing. That's not really the environment outside of boot camp. So it's not a daily or even common experience to have somebody in your face screaming like that. So I'm starting to get scared. And the guy with me was like 6'2", big muscular dude. And he just stood up real slow and was like, "She's going to hit the head now."
And that's all it takes.
Like,
Yep.
yeah. So,
And then
and the guy was
so easy
quaking
to
with
stand up.
rage, but he wouldn't stand up to that guy that was bigger than him.
Mm-hmm. And it's so easy as a man to stand. And I know it's hard. It isn't easy. It's not easy to stand up to each other, but it's easy to do it when you know that the person that you're standing up for is equal to you. Like when you just fundamentally know that the person that you're standing up for, woman, man, trans, other, somewhere in between, doesn't matter. As long as you see them as equal, you stand up and it's just easy because
Yeah.
you don't want that shit to happen. Like, it's one of those things where like people do imagine if Biden was in office, imagine if you were standing there going,
Yep.
I'm about to have a massive accident. For men, let's just talk. Imagine you were about to shit yourself and your commander said, "Nah, bro, sit your ass back down, go back to work." Would you sit there and go, "No, I'm gonna, sit down and shit myself"? Or would you stand up and if you see your dude who's like, "I'm about to fuck shit myself," would you stand up and go, "Hey man, get out of his face, let him go shit"?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like it's that easy. And if you think of it that way, it's not like it's
I
not
mean,
hard to do. Is the
well,
thing in the end is what I think is now as you get older and as you get more experienced, then it's really hard as a young man, like because
yeah.
you want to fit in with the other men, you want to be all tough. And I want to get to the question Morgan asked because it's a really good one. And I think it leads into it's part of this problem. In all of this is part of this problem. But Morgan asks is how do actual predators and sex offenders, harassers, etc., get assigned to be in positions over that problem in in positions of power? And is this after a crackdown on sexual abuse? The answer is yes. It is after the crackdown on sexual abuse. A lot of times they didn't get rid of these people because there was no reporting before, or it hasn't been reported as a sharp incident or a specific incident, and you have a good EO who actually follows up on it. Like there's keys to these things working, and you have to have people who care in place and who are willing to believe the people that come forward to them and say it. That is like that's the whole key. And if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what anybody says. If it's not going to be believed, then the chain of command isn't going to do anything, or the chain of command is the problem. So, Melissa, I want to get your thoughts on it too. And Fred.
I'll just say real quick, like I'll just dispel a lot of people's illusions on this. Accountability in the military is a joke.
Yeah.
It's a freaking joke. It comes down to really whether the person that has authority wants to do right by the people underneath them. And a lot of times, like you are going to take a risk, because what ends up happening is you get like these pieces of shit that are promoted, and so they don't want to get outed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you try to run it up the flagpole or run up the chain, it's like or they just don't want to. They don't want to have to deal with it, right?
Yeah, it's too much.
Why are you creating a mess? Why are you creating an incident? Blah 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 blah. Right.
This was a good soldier that you're doing this to.
Right. And I'll let you launch on it, Melissa. But basically, how this happens, Morgan, accountability is a joke. And you either handle it yourself, right?
Yep.
Or you protect the people in your shop, know. And
it's
so
very
you go
much,
ahead.
It's very much like prison rules almost.
Yes.
You can't expect help from the top down. Like it's just not
Nope.
going to happen. When I was in, now that's been 20 years ago, and something I didn't realize at the time that definitely looking back on it was like, oh, okay, that's definitely a factor. I was one of the first wave of women to be on that ship.
Mm.
So I was walking into an environment where they hadn't worked with women extensively and had a lot of women in the workplace, which is by no means an excuse. You should still know how to act as an adult. But it did inform some of the things that happened. And looking back, I'm like, okay, they were just super comfortable behaving this way. And there was a culture shift when women came in. But at the time, there were a select few female officers that would take as many women under their wing as they could. And they looked out for us, and they had the power and were in a position like the warrant officer that chewed out my lieutenant and made him apologize to me in front of the division. They had the power to pull these men out and make examples of them. And if you don't have that in your division, your platoon, whatever it is, boy, life is hard.
There is there are a shit ton of unsung heroes of women and good men and people of color that stayed in the service despite everything it did, because they wanted it to be better. Yeah. And the pushback you're seeing now is literally just from a scintilla, a sliver of accountability. Like DEI, all that. It's just, it's barely, it's like, it's a cough drop compared to a cancer, and it's creating this reaction from Pete Hegseth and everything else. Ridiculous, man. So again, thank you for speaking out, Melissa. Thank you for what you do. It's highly important, because often women in the military, my sister included, who was a West Pointer and went through harassment, they suffer, Nick's wife, they suffer so much. And the women who move up the chain and still look out for their fellow women, unsung heroes, man. I'm telling you now.
They are.
Like, I'll tell you, the person who fought for my wife the most in the end was her chief warrant officer, which on the Army side, warrants are between enlisted and officers. I don't know if it's the same with the Navy.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes things get weird with ranks and names and stuff between all of us.
Gunners
But
are
our-
untouchable, man. Gunners are untouchable.
I mean, we
That's
basically
true.
got rid
Well,
of corporals. We don't
Yeah.
have gunners, really.
Yeah, we did. In the Marines, they're called gunners. Like Chief Warrant Officer, we call them gunners.
Ours are. We call them unicorns.
Yeah, we call them it's gunners. So they're not top. They're not gunnery sergeant. They're gunners, and so like because they're like basically like specialists for their. But so like a gunner, man, a gunner tells you to do something. Like he can tell
You do
top.
it.
Yeah, he can tell top like, and they're usually like the old heads that are really laid back. And they're like, yeah, top. I don't think that's a good idea.
And so the people that got most interest to support my wife were her chiefs, because she was really good at her job, like incredibly good at her job, and the chiefs wanted her to go warrant. They were working on helping her get a warrant packet put together, and the Army shafted her career because they decided, and this is the shitty part, they decided to send me to NTC, which is the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California, as a instructor and augmentee to augment the permanent unit that was there to help instruct while my wife was pregnant, like 6 months pregnant, and having medical issues. And they stopped her from putting in a Red Cross message to have me brought home partway through. And my sergeant, I was an E5 at the time, and my E6 who was above me, he and I are still really good friends. So my staff sergeant above me, he and I talked about it beforehand, and he was like, yeah, there's no way you can say no to this. I was like, Sergeant, my wife is pregnant and going to the hospital. He's like, I know, they're not going to take no. And I was like, the reason they're sending you is because they want to send this other guy who has better PT scores and looks more the part, basically, who was going green to gold, which meant enlisted to officer.
mhm.
His wife was also pregnant at the same time. So they used the excuse that his wife was slightly more pregnant than mine. So he couldn't go, but I could. But his wife was a civilian. And so
Mhm.
they had control over my wife's situation and could have made
Right.
it easier and correct, and they didn't. And then when they refused to let her have me come home after training was over, and I sat there for 3 or 4 days waiting for a fucking bus, and my E6, who was going back for E7 board, was like, I'll give you my plane ticket for you to go home. And they said no. She got half my chain of command fired.
Nice.
And her chain of command got half of them fired because she had an incident while I was gone, and they said no to her. You have to admit, she's a soldier too.
Yeah.
They're supposed to give her all the same rights and benefits as me. And they told her she couldn't put in a Red Cross message, which in the military, a Red Cross message means you come home fucking immediately from wherever
Right.
you are, whoever that family member that it is. It could be your spouse, it could be your kid, it could be your parent, your brother, your sister, whatever. Someone in your immediate family is having a medical emergency that you have to come home for. The military isn't required to bring you home. They wouldn't let her send the message to get me home.
I got to jump. So I got to jump.
Oh, yeah, you got to
live.
jump. You got something. You got
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Melissa.
and-
Thank you, Nick. So always a pleasure. I'm jumping
Always.
on live with Anna Wick. So
And we're
talking
going to
about
close up.
a real life
go ahead.
Handmaid's Tale.
Ooh, shit.
Ooh, fun.
And we're going to close up here just so that people can also jump over to Fred's live because I want to hear about it. So Melissa, thank you so much. Fred, thank you so much. This was an incredible afternoon. I'm glad we did this. I'd love to have you back again as always, Melissa. And I'll see about getting some time with you, me, and Bobby Jones, and we'll have a Navy discussion with you guys and
Hell
go
yeah.
off on Pete Hegseth and his bullshit.
Yeah.
Thanks again,
so-
folks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Let's stop
Bye-bye.
being sick of this and let's start doing this shit, guys. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.